Thank you for listening to this episode of the Feldencast. I'm your host, Ethan Cowan. Hello there. Welcome to the Feldencast. This is episode 6. And I feel like it's a good moment to just ask you, dear listener, how's it going so far? Are there things that are working well? Are there things that aren't working so well? Do you need more information about anything? Is anything unclear? The lesson's too hard or the lesson's too easy? How is this landing for you? I figure if you're listening to episode 6, then you've probably listened to some of the previous episodes. You're probably not just starting here. And you're still here, you're still doing it. Normally I would say feel free to send me an email, but I'd actually like to ask you to please send me an email. I'd love to know who's listening and how it's going. This lesson is sort of like a recapitulation, or starting over, but starting again. In this first chunk of Alexander Yunai Lessons, the first reel of lessons, which will correspond to the first season of this podcast, I think it's safe to say that there are some challenging aspects to most of the lessons. And sometimes, depending on our skill level or our experience level, sometimes it can be hard to feel successful during challenging lessons. And I'm aware that feeling unsuccessful too many times in a row can lead to to stopping. So I put this lesson in here. It's another breathing lesson, kind of like episode 2. And at this point in the season, hopefully there's some benefit to kind of revisiting certain themes that we've already touched on. There's a fine balance in Feldenkrais lessons, same in life, between adding novelty, new experiences that kind of pique the attention, and then still maintaining some sense of conservation, kind of folding things in so that old things, our bodies, ourselves, start to seem new again. So here's episode 6, breathing lesson, when the chest is shrinking. Okay, please just lie on your back for a minute. Okay, good. Now just start to feel how you're breathing right now. You can pay attention to the feeling of the inhalation, the air coming in, and the feeling of the exhalation, the air going out. Good. Now just feel the inhalation, the exhalation in the chest. What happens? During which part of the cycle of the breath does your chest expand a little bit? Does your chest expand when you breathe in or when you breathe out? And then feel for yourself what happens when the air goes out, when the air leaves your lungs. What shape does your chest make when you exhale? Good. Now breathe in just a little bit more. So you just exaggerate the inhalation a little bit and feel what happens to your chest. If you breathe in like a little bit more air than is actually comfortable to breathe in, what happens to your chest? And if you hold your breath, you breathe in a little bit too much air and then you hold your breath, what shape does your chest make when you let go? Okay, now you're lying there with your legs long. But now feel what happens if you bend your legs. Put the legs so the feet are standing on the floor. If you just tune in now to your sensation in your chest when you're breathing, is it the same or is it different? And what directions does your chest expand when you breathe in? Probably it's easy to feel that it rises a little bit forward toward the ceiling. Does the back of the chest change pressure on the floor when you breathe in? Does does the chest expand sideways at all when you breathe in? Like, does it go to the left and to the right? Or what about, does the chest move down at all into the territory of the abdomen and the stomach? Does the chest, what about, does it expand into the neck at all? The throat? Or maybe just into the clavicles, collarbones? And then just feel for any places where you're surprised that the chest really isn't moving at all when you breathe. Okay, good. Now just leave that and roll onto your right side. And on the right side, just arrange yourself so that your legs are bent comfortably, both in the hips and the knees, so you're stable on your right side. And then put your right arm under your head. So the right arm is kind of long. You're using it like a pillow, sort of. And then in this position, just feel your breathing. And feel the inhalations when the air is coming in, and the exhalations when the air is going out. So when you inhale, that means air is going in and filling your lungs up. And when you exhale, it means that the air is leaving your lungs, emptying the lungs. And then there are muscles and various structures around the lungs. So just feel, how does the chest expand and maybe contract as you're breathing? So just feel, how does the chest itself kind of expand and contract when you're breathing? And you've got the floor to the right of you. Your right arm's touching the floor, the right side of your chest, the right side of the abdomen, the whole right leg. And then the left side of you is kind of up in the air. So just feel, does that affect how one side of the chest expands compared to the other? When all the air goes out of the lungs, does it go out symmetrically or asymmetrically? Which ribs press a little bit into the floor when you breathe in? And then feel which ribs get softer when you breathe out. Good. And then leave that alone and just roll onto your left side so you can feel the left side. So on the left side, you organize yourself so the hips and the knees are bent, so you're comfortable on the left side, stable. With the left arm long under the head. And as you continue to feel the effects of inhaling and exhaling on the chest, right away, is it the same on this side or is it different? What do you feel in the left side of the chest compared to the right side of the chest? How is the position of the left arm constraining the movement of the chest? And maybe you feel that, maybe you don't. When you feel the chest expand during the inhalation, just feel, does the chest move a little bit to the right in the direction of the ceiling? Or you can use the pressure against the floor to tell, is the chest expanding to the left? And feel again the chest expanding forward now in the direction of a wall, backward in the direction of the opposite wall. Expanding also down in the direction of the abdomen. Then up into the upper part of the chest. How much do the upper ribs move when you breathe in? Good. Now, very slowly, which is the opposite of fast, very slowly, just breathe in a little bit too much. And you're going slowly enough so that you're pretty clear about the very moment when it gets to be too much. So that you're breathing in and you can tell the exact moment. So you could stop before you breathe in too much. And likewise, you can decide for yourself, okay, this is a little bit too much, but I'm going to do too much, and I know it. And when you breathe in too much, just feel what parts of the chest does that activate in a way that your chest isn't activated when you just breathe a good amount. And when you let all of the air go out of your lungs after you breathe in, then what shape does the chest end up in? And when you exhale after you've inhaled and you let all the air go out of the chest, what are all the different shapes that your chest is in on the way to empty? Okay, good. Now just leave it alone and roll onto your back. Just rest for a minute or two. And as you lie on your back, just do a little scan of the shape of the chest. So just feel, what are the lowest ribs that you can feel in the back? And what are the lowest ribs that you can feel in the front? And what are the lowest ribs that you can feel on the sides? And then the lowest ribs you can feel in the middle of your chest. Where's the sternum end? And then feel the two collarbones kind of going out from the middle of the base of the throat. And then you've got the two shoulder blades, right shoulder blade, left shoulder blade, resting on the floor. And of course, you could feel the space in between the two shoulder blades. And also, there are ribs that are very close to your armpits. But now, as you breathe, you just feel how the ribs, the chest expands during inhalation and then kind of shrinks during the exhalation. But is the expansion and the contraction of the chest equally distributed among all the ribs, or do certain ribs move a lot more, a lot less than others? Okay, good. Now just roll over onto your front side. And you can turn your head either to the right or to the left, whichever is more comfortable. And whichever way you're facing, just have the arm on that side up, comfortably kind of in front of the face. And then in this position, just continue to feel how the breathing affects the shape of the chest. So now you've got the floor there. So your face is turned in one direction. Which side of the chest is expanding more palpably into the floor? And there's one arm that's long upward, and then one arm that's kind of downward in the direction of the feet. So feel, is the side of the chest with the arm that's up pressing more into the floor, or is it the side with the arm that's going down? Which armpit is easier to breathe into and breathe out of? The right armpit or the left armpit? Good. Now draw your, whichever arm is up, draw that same knee up on the floor. So that means that side of the pelvis comes a little bit away from the floor. And just continue like this for a moment, expanding and then letting the chest shrink. Just give a little extra attention to what shape does the chest shrink into. All the air goes out, gets soft. Okay, leave it and just turn your head the other direction. Lengthen both legs for now and have you start with both legs long on the other side. So now it's the other arm that's up, you're facing the other direction, and again, you're just breathing to feel how the chest gets bigger and then the chest gets smaller. Which armpit is it easier to breathe into? Is it the same armpit as when you were facing the other direction, or did the armpits switch in terms of ease? In which lung is it a little bit easier to feel that it gets really empty? It's like an empty bag. Okay, and then draw up the leg on this side, so it's the leg on the same side as the arm that's up. So it's like the inside edge of that leg is on the floor. More or less, the pelvis kind of rolled over in the other direction. Now, just continue like that. Okay, great. Let it go and roll onto your back. Just rest. Now, when you're resting on your back, just try to observe without changing anything about the breathing. What does it feel like now compared to the beginning? Has anything that you've done so far changed how you experience your breathing, or is your breathing the same? Okay, good. Now bend your left leg, put your left foot standing on the floor. And then bring your right arm long above your head so it's resting on the floor. Doesn't have to be straight up, could be sort of out diagonally, but you find a way to rest your arm long above your head on the floor. And now, like this, just a few times, try to slowly, the opposite of fast, just breathe so that the chest gets a little bit bigger when you breathe in, and then the chest shrinks when you breathe out. What effect does it have to have the right arm long above your head? Does it change one side of the chest? Good. Now switch your arms and switch your legs. So now it's the right leg standing, the left arm long above. And a few times, very slowly breathe in so you expand the chest, and then feel what shape does the chest become as the air goes out. I should say, what are all the different shapes that the chest becomes as the air is going out? And where does the chest end up when the lungs are as empty as they get? Good, now leave that alone. Roll yourself up so you can come to sitting. And now sit for a moment with the soles of your feet together. Means the outside of both legs, the outsides are on the floor. And like this, a few times you just breathe so that the chest gets a little bit bigger when you inhale, shrinks when you exhale. How does your head move? What shape does your back become when you breathe in like that, breathe out like that? And then shift your weight over so you put your right hand on the floor, and you can flip your left leg over so that the inside of the left leg is on the floor and the outside of the right leg is on the floor. And find out where can you lean on the right hand so that you're comfortable sitting like this, sort of side sitting. And then a few times in this position, just breathe in so the chest expands, out so you can watch the chest shrink. And now, what's the story in the right armpit, the arm that you're leaning on? How does that side of the chest expand, and what shape does it shrink into at the very end? Good, and then switch the legs over so you can lean on the left hand while you're side sitting the other way. Now you breathe in so that the chest expands, and then you just let the lungs empty of all air. And then leave it alone one more time. Roll onto your back to rest. Good. Now one last thing. So try this. Try to inhale so that you fill up the chest. And then leave the chest big while the air goes out. So you inhale and you feel how the air filling the lungs fills the chest. And then you just leave the chest in that shape so you don't let it shrink. Even though the air goes out, the chest stays puffed. And then at some moment you let all those muscles relax and you do let the chest kind of soften. So you inhale and you fill the chest, and then you hold the chest like that. The air goes out, but the chest stays. And then at some point the chest gives and gets soft. Okay, leave it alone. Just watch your breathing now. It means don't change anything about the breathing. Just see what it does on its own. Try to remember how you're breathing at the very beginning of the lesson. Just compare that to how you're breathing now. Great. Now, just roll to one side or the other, come up to sitting, and then bring yourself up to standing. And then you just stand for a moment so you can feel what effect did the lesson have on you? What are the multiple effects, maybe? If you just observe your breathing in standing, what do you notice? And try a few times to just consciously expand the chest when you breathe in, and then feel, where does it sink to? How does it empty? Do you have a different sense of the structure when you're standing up, like the bones? Okay, great. Now just finish the lesson by walking a little bit, just to feel, what does your breathing do when you're walking? Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Feldencast. If you'd like to reach out and say hello, please do. You can email me at ethan@feldencast.com. I offer the Feldencast in a spirit of transparent generosity. If you have enjoyed your experience, and if you want to give back, please check out the Patreon page. It's patreon.com/Feldencast. Right now, this podcast is just a baby. We have, on average, 10, 12 listeners per episode. So if you'd like to help the Feldencast grow, please share this episode or any other episode that you've enjoyed, especially with family and friends. Thanks again for listening. I'm really enjoying this project, and I hope you are too.